Hello, everyone. If to believe technologies, we are ready to go. I'm very happy to welcome all of you and to see so many online participants joining our presentation today, titled The Strengthening Cooperation Between Local Governments and Civil Society for Ukraine's Recovery. This is going to be a conversation about successful and sometimes challenging cooperation between local government, civil society, and donors, not only for Ukraine recovery, but in the meantime with the resilience on the local levels as well. Ukraine is going through the full-scale invasion and recovery at the same time, and because of the local resilience and decentralization reform that we will hear a bit more about, Ukraine showed and Ukrainians showed not only the resilience in the short-term perspective, but also the innovativeness and inspiration for the short-term to long-term recovery. On the examples of local authorities, local civil society, we will see how successful and how challenging this cooperation can be, what projects can work, what projects cannot work, what practices can be translated to other regions, and what is uniquely working for some of the hromadas or local communities on their own. For this discussion and presentation, we have Yana Brovdi, the author of the paper and policy recommendations. Apart from being the Rethink Fellow, she is an advocacy and Easter Partnership Index Manager at the European Partnership Civil Society Forum. We have Natalia Droz joining from Ukraine, from Chernihiv. She is a chairwoman of the Brochin Center and the inspiration behind some initiatives taking place in Chernihiv and the Chernihiv region. And Ukraine for that matter too. And we are also joined by Christian Larsen, who is the second national expert at Directorate General for Enlargement and Eastern Neighborhood at the European Commission. So the person observing all the things taking place on the ground as well. This event is taking place within the framework of the Rethink Fellowship, which supports the next generation of policy analysts and civic activists from Central and Eastern European countries. I'm happy to pass the floor to Yana for her short presentation.
Thank you very much, Irina, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. First of all, before I start my presentation, I would really like to thank the Rethink Fellowship, to thank the German Marshall Fund, the whole team behind the fellowship, for giving me the opportunity to study the topic about which I'm very passionate about. But most importantly as well, I would really like to thank all civil society organizations on the ground in Chernihiv region, as well as local governments, especially from Horodnya, Mena, and Nizhyn, for really opening their doors to me, for sharing their expertise and knowledge and cases and successful cases of cooperation with me. Without all of them, this paper would not have been possible. And also, before maybe I further on start presenting the results, I would like to just say why I decided to really study this topic and why I'm passionate about the cooperation between local governments and civil society. So my professional background combines both experiences working with local governments at the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, where I led a project on cooperation between local governments in Ukraine and in the European Union. And I have also worked and supported Ukrainian civil society organization and independent media when I was working for European Endowment for Democracy. And now I also continue to work on civil society in the EAP-CSF. And so I have always believed that cooperation between local governments and civil society in Ukraine is really the present and the future of the country. And the more the more cases of cooperation exist, the more successful cooperation is there, the better it is for the Ukrainian society, the better it is for Ukraine's recovery, the better it is for Ukraine's democracy also long term. And I have been following developments with this decentralization reform of Ukraine, as well as, of course, the strengthening of Ukrainian civil society after the two revolutions of dignity. And these two actors in Ukraine are really really has shown progress in terms of strengthening when it comes to local government and providing services, as well as responding in the aftermath of the full-scale invasion. Both local governments and civil society organizations in Ukraine are really credited very often by different, both internal and external observers, as the actors that really contributed to Ukraine's being able to withstand the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so this is really what motivated my study, to be able to go into more in-depth, and by focusing on one region in particular, Chernihiv, to study the examples of cooperation, and also to see the challenges, and be able to come up with some ideas and suggestions on how this collaboration can be improved for Ukraine, for the future of Ukraine, for Ukraine's recovery. So I will be. You can also find the paper now online, and have also been shared with you. Of course, I have very limited in time, so I really encourage you to actually have a look at the full paper. While I will be just focusing on some of the main parts and some of the main cases. So as I have already mentioned, the paper is focused on Chernihiv region. For those of you who might not know Chernihiv region and might be joining us from different countries, Chernihiv region borders Belarus and Russia, which is making it especially vulnerable as a region to the Russian invasion, but also to current continuous current shelling of Russia. And though the capital city was spared during occupation, many parts of the region, including the municipality that I have studied, were occupied, and they suffered also damage. Since the liberation of the parts of the region has been of the whole region, the region has been actively already rebuilding. So also recovery of Ukraine is about today, and not just about when the war is over. A lot of buildings have been restored, but all this my paper was important to mention is not just about infrastructure, not about restoring the building, but it's also about human capital and how to make sure that that human capital is not only preserved but also strengthened and empowered in Ukraine, in the contents of Ukraine's recovery. That's why I really would like you to not just think about buildings and bridges and roads, but think about the recovery in much larger terms. So now going into a bit more details already on the cases that I explore in my study. I will not go into all of them. I will just cover some of them due to the lack of time. So the first one that I am looking into is the Nizhyn urban hromada. I have actually visited the municipality. I have talked with the civil society organizations on the ground, as well as the mayor and the local as well officials during my visit to Nizhyn. It's a municipality of around 66,700 people. After the start of the full-scale invasion, the municipality, some buildings were destroyed, including private houses, schools, and kindergartens were damaged. But Nizhyn has really struck me as a very good examples of really effective cooperation between local governments and civil society organizations. And there is really a lot of motivation for cooperation. I could really feel it both from the side of local government as well as from the civil society organizations with whom I spoke. And it's really amazing that the municipality, in cooperation with both local civil society organization as well as regional and national civil society organizations, really managed to attract a lot of funding for projects, more than 3.2 million euros only last year. And this is really a substantial part of the budget of the municipality. As you might know, most municipalities of Ukraine have seen a decrease in their budgets because of the full-scale invasion and the challenges of new services and that they need to address, and general decline of economic activity. And so this external funding that the civil CSOs are able to bring to the municipalities such as Nizhyn is really, really crucial. social. There are a number of more than 30 projects have been implemented or in process of being implemented with the help of civil society organizations in different sectors, from healthcare to social services, economic development, etc. And what's interesting is some of the practices that are installed in the municipality. So, for example, the city council organizes regular working groups with the representatives of civil society organizations, also involves active youth groups, local businesses, and other stakeholders. When they have a big projects, for example, supported by the United Nations or other donors, they actually have also like a working group around that project that that includes different civil society representatives that work on the topic of the project, but also if it involves economic development, local businesses. At some point, they said we might even have too many working groups. So these working groups regularly meet to discuss challenges, prioritize projects, and the CSOs are really actively encouraged to present ideas, propose, and vote to decide what to implement, etc. There is also Department of International Relations Investment Activities that helps with grant applications to grassroots or like less experienced CSOs. Of course, their resources are very limited, but the fact that they are also open to help with the grants. We actually met an NGO that received this kind of support with drafting their first grant ever in their life from this department, was really appreciated by the NGO. And one of the projects that really is a good example of how a grassroots initiative with the support of the city council really becomes a flagship project is a veteran center called Unbreakable. It was the first veteran center in the region when it was opened. And the council provided premises, involved also funding from the partner cities in the EU, and the two civil society organizations that were behind the Veteran Space mobilized funding for innovation on programming. And the moment the Veteran Space provides ecological support, legal aid, career counseling for around 750 veterans that exist that live in the municipality. Another very interesting factor that, in my view, also contributes to this very lively ecosystem and cooperation between local governments and civil societies as a university. There is a Nizhyn Mykolaiv State University that operates, is active on the territory of the municipality, and there are a number of programs, including in the social work, that actually encourage young people to volunteer, to get involved in projects. They also teach students how to write applications for grants. They also have regular dialogue with the city council that also and they often also apply together for projects. So this is also a very important factor that contributes to this ecosystem of cooperation, and helps local government also with the resources, sort of educating the young people, encouraging them to either going to work for the civil society organization, and there are also examples then these young people also go into the civil society organization and then to go work for the local council as well. Another example is the MENA municipality. It's a much smaller municipality of around 26,000 people in Chernihiv region. And they were briefly occupied during the first months of the war, and the MENA is also located very close to the Russian border. What's interesting about MENA is that they have a lot of projects. They have attracted a lot of funding, but also they have a very long-term already history of successful cooperation with the civil society organization, especially in the topic of environment and energy efficiency. They have so this cooperation really predates full-scale invasion and even predates the war in 2014. Since 2013, MENA has become part of the European Covenant of Mayors and has implemented, a lot projects related to the covenant. And one of the early projects that really showed the municipal authorities the importance of cooperating with civil society and what it can bring to them was the 500,000 project to install 1,500 LED street lights that was implemented, including with the help of civil society organizations. And nowadays they continue also to work in this direction, most recently installing a hybrid power station on this at the city hospital, and also some NGOs have helped to the city to draft a renewable energy strategy by 2050, which involved technical assessment, navigating funding and regulatory barriers. Another interesting project, Digital Shield of MENA, which was a collaboration also between a number of CSOs to modernize digital infrastructure and cybersecurity, which was also supported by international donor. And also on a smaller scale project, but still a project that was very much the local government was very passionate about it, because it's brought young people from all over Ukraine through organization Building Ukraine together to build a shelter in the city. Something, of course, that is very important nowadays, especially in the municipalities that are located close to the border with Russia. There is another example, which I will not go into details, but I really encourage you to take a look, because it's another municipality called Horodnya, which is really has also very interesting examples of collaboration, and I encourage you to take a look on them in the paper. Now, when it comes to the challenges of cooperation, there are a number of them. So both in the interviews, but as well as in a short survey that I have done as part of doing this research, which was answered by about 15 civil society organizations from Chernihiv, working with different local governments and also specializing in different topics. One of the challenges that got the most votes was bureaucratic hurdles and lack of coordination mechanisms. So CSOs often operate at a faster pace and have fewer top-down processes than local governments. So while local governments in Ukraine really had to adjust to new wartime realities, and a lot of them became a lot faster, we really have to give them credit for that, and more responsive due to the wartime expectations of the citizens. Bureaucracy is still, of course, an integral part, and there are still outdated practices that exist on the ground as well. And in some cases, officials, avoid the responsibility under the guise, of bureaucracy. And this can be very frustrating for civil society organizations, especially those very progressive, very active ones that are not accustomed to navigated this old practices and waiting for responses, long time for the responses. There is also a lack of coordination mechanism and limited understanding, and this is both at the often local, regional, but also at the central level, and lack of coordination mechanism specifically to how to get involved in the projects. So in the case of civil society organizations, they don't, especially not the local ones, they often not know how to approach or in what kind of projects together they can be done with the local government. But what is from the side of the local governments, I have also seen a lot of frustration with not knowing what's happening at the central level, and how some of the funding related to projects on recovery, reconstruction, how funding is allocated, and what could be the entrance points for them. So that was also this challenge. And funding in general is something that has always been and will remain a challenge. Of course, following the full-scale invasion, there has been an increase in funding, especially in Chernihiv, not especially in Chernihiv region, but in Chernihiv region, and in Ukraine in general, when it comes to international donors. Many donors started for the first time, specifically in Chernihiv, working with either local organization or national organization to implement the projects on the ground. However, funding started to dwindle towards 2024, and this is a part of a larger trend. For example, according to OSCE, the aid to Ukraine, which initially dramatically increased in 2022, declined by 16.7% last year, and especially with the humanitarian aid cut by more than 53%. And so most of my research was done before USAID cuts as well on the ground. So now is the situation probably even worse. And of course, the decline in funding threatens, not only service delivery by local governments, but also partnership with local authorities. Often civil society organizations are able to implement projects because of the also international funding that comes. And this halt of the US support can have a really negative effect also on a lot of good projects that were being implemented jointly by local governments and civil society organizations. Then, of course, lack of human resources. This is something that is a common also in general for Ukraine nowadays, not only when it comes to local governments or civil society, but largely speaking. And when it comes to having especially dedicated, for example, person or department responsible for building partnership with civil society organization, developing joint projects, applying for funding together is really a luxury for most communities, and only the biggest one and most capable ones are actually able to afford this, such as Nizhyn, for example. The issue also is compounded by the ongoing brain drain, for example, with higher salaries and more diverse career opportunities in Kyiv. This is specifically relevant for Chernihiv, attracting skills professionals away from the region. And also local government and CSOs are also losing qualified staff to international projects, which often also offer higher salaries. So people working in local CSOs, especially, and very often are in more precarious situations because they don't have institutional funding, at least not even, short to medium term, let alone like long term. The other element and another challenge is lack of motivation. The cooperation between local governments and CSOs, I have seen it firsthand, really hinges on the motivation from both sides, but also very often from the side of the municipalities, from the side of the mayor, especially, and the side of the people working, the officials, administrators working in different topics. But at the same time, still cooperation often is initiated by civil society organizations that approach municipalities and approach local governments with the projects. For some local governments, cooperation with CSOs is often associated with soft projects, such as training and civic engagement, which are not often seen as a priority, though at least the municipalities with whom I talked, for them, these soft projects are as important as hard projects because they are about people and building capacities of people, of citizens, getting citizens involved. But for other municipalities, when they do engage, in activities, they often, in soft projects, they often expect then some sort of hard component that would be a follow-up to the projects. And then another challenge that I would like to mention here is the blurring lines between local governments and civil society organizations. What I mean here is that local governments sometimes, and this was already practiced before the full-scale invasion, establish non-governmental organization that kind of they de facto run to overcome some bureaucratic or legal obstacles to implement the projects. And in general, even sometimes local governments cannot apply because they don't fulfill the criteria of some of the projects in programmatic calls of international donors. So then by having a non-governmental organization, then they can apply for different type of programs that otherwise would not be open for them. However, when this happens and when the local government sort of runs a local NGO, of course, this creates a blurring of line between what the local government is, what civil society is, and this risk diminishes the role of civil society organizations as independent advocates and watchdogs. And of course, the organizations that are run or very close by or are very close to the local governments and local government officials, they are unlikely to investigate corruption and could be advancing also certain political interest of mayors, especially around election. Of course, now we don't have that problem in Ukraine because at the moment it's not about elections, but this could potentially still be an issue in in the future. Now, just to finalize a few key recommendations. I will not go through all of them because there are quite a few. So again, I encourage you to have a look at the paper online. The recommendations are split for the civil society, for the central government, local government, and national donors. And maybe here I will really focus rather on civil society, the local governments, and also international donors. So for CSOs, I heard some of the people I talked to complaining that sometimes CSOs approach them without having any idea about what the local, what specific municipality is about, what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses, not even reading, as somebody said, not even reading a Wikipedia page about us before approaching us with the project. So, and this is very frustrating for the local governments. So it's very important that the project that CSOs come to the local governments with, that they at least align to some extent, with the strategies, with the policies and the budget plans that are already in place, that the CSOs understand, local challenges, development goals, they understand the constraints. Because if the CSOs do this homework, it shows respect to the local government, to the community with whom they would like to engage in, and then as a result, the trust of the local government in such proposals will be higher already from the start. Also for the CSOs, it's important to avoid replicating standard project templates across different communities without adaptation. There is a lot of lack of time now in Ukraine for obvious reasons, and some CSOs, try to, under donor pressure as well, often replicate the same models of projects from one community to the other, and this is not the best way, especially this community might not have the same challenges as an even neighboring community. So conducting needs assessment, engaging community members, and really co-designing intervention together with the local governments is incredibly important. When it comes to local governments, it's always important to hold regular dialogue, both with local civil society organizations, but also inviting organizations from outside, either regional organization, and even holding open days for organizations from outside the region, communicating all opportunities for cooperation in open and transparent manner, and also making, if there is a budget for it, and if there is public services that are to be provided by the civil society organization, to make this procurement processes for the provision of services by CSOs transparent. So this incorporating openness to civil society is really a core element of also building, trust with the CSOs. And just to finish, some few ideas for when it comes to really international donors, because there is a lot really that they are already doing in the country context, and still will do a lot in the months and years to come. It's important to design programs in such a way that encourage cooperation between civil society and local governments, because very often now the programs are either targeting civil society organization or targeting local government. And by combining and encouraging this cooperation as co-applicants, for example, this could really also boost the motivation from both sides to cooperate, especially now when the funding is dwindling. Also require establishment of oversight bodies within, recovery-related projects that include both representatives of local governments and civil society organizations. Unfortunately, still, this is even getting one representative or the other is difficult these days. And promoting positive examples of collaboration between local governments and civil society in especially Ukrainian context, but also in the international forums, like now in the Ukraine Recovery Conference, really showing this collaboration. and also offering technical assistance to strengthen project implementation capacity, of course, through training, partnership, and talent exchange programs. This is a more general recommendation. So just to conclude, sustaining cooperation between local governments and civil society is really, in my view, essential for inclusive and effective recovery process in Ukraine, and institutionalizing this partnership to the extent possible will not only improve service delivery and community resilience, but also lay a stronger foundation for democratic reconstruction after the war in Ukraine. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jana, for the presentation. Just to also say that the questions will be received through the Q&A box that you can see at the bottom of the screen. And then closer to the end of the event, we will have the discussion of questions to the speakers. Following this short presentation, I would like to turn to Natalia now, to the representative of civil society organizations, of local civil society voices actually from Ukraine and from Chernihiv and the Chernihiv region. Could you please share your insights for how long this cooperation was going on already? What are the main successes? What are the main challenges? And how do you see this cooperation going forward, and whether can this be also translated and adopted to other regions in Ukraine? Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. And thank you, Jana, for choosing our region as a pilot one, that our practices could be studied and then replicated all over Ukraine. I think that all that you have said about opportunities, challenges, it is very relevant to all other regions, especially because the challenges that we are all now living in our country practically the same, and so we are doing the same mistakes, trying different practices. We try to share our lessons learned, that other communities, that others region could pick up best practices and could follow them on. We have been working in Chernihiv region, our organization, for 25 years already. So we have very good connections and collaboration with the most of territorial communities, municipalities of Chernihiv region, now Sumy region. So we have partners all over Ukraine, because our organization is a part of network local resource centers for local democracy. So we do know situation on the ground. We work on the grassroots level, and maybe I start with the comment, because when Jana told about the challenges from a local government, how do they see intervention of civil society organizations? For me, it sounds like some kind, it resembles with the situation that it looks like national NGOs that comes to the region with the same application form, with the same ideas, having no idea and not consulting what the situation is on the local level. And we as local organization, we raise this topic that we need more partnership between national civil society organization and local civil society organization. Because, for example, we start some idea, any project activities or whatever, and then we read, for example, somewhere in internet that already we have the similar projects started, initiated on national level. No local community, neither local governments have no idea that we are already included in, that we are already a part of someone bigger project, national-wide, that is expand all over Ukraine. So yes, this is really an issue. So we need more collaboration and cooperation, exchange information between local and national civil society organization to meet better needs of municipalities and especially people who live there. While local governments now see us, local civil society organization, more than a partner, even more than a strategic partner. First, but it's interesting point, because capacity building, we both like local governments and civil society organization, we both lack human resources, we both lack financial resources, whatever. We both live in a very strange situation when you could not sleep at night, but in the morning you wake up and go to work because you have to. But at least civil society organization is more dedicated not only to these so-called tactic activities, to repair, to rebuild, or whatever to do, but to think strategically what to do better for their community, for their municipality, what projects could be done, and where to invest money. Because now, when every community, municipality is shortage of finance, so you have to prioritize what to do first, because everything is important. Health is important, education is important. Without them, work is employment is important. Without all these activities, you won't have people, because human capital is recognized now. Everyone is agree with this policy that we should invest in people. Ask people what we should repair first, the road to the hospital or whatever. And so now that's why this strategic collaboration led by, I'm not afraid to say, by civil society organization, not so much by local government, because they are too busy with all this early reconstruction, even not recovery. If we can divide like early reconstruction, it's like repair of schools, medicine, or whatever. It's more committed. The local government is more committed to this. And if we talk about more strategic approach, like strategic development or strategic for recovery or plans for their recovery, how and should be done in future, which would be the economic point of growth, for example, in these communities, what should be done after the war, post-war recovery. All these activities is led by civil society organizations, even in those municipalities who are capable and have finances to do this, because it's not priority for them. Priority is good services for their citizens and trying to keep their citizens, especially youth, on their places. So this collaboration now on local level is on very sufficient level, and I am happy to tell about that. And what we need is more support in capacity building, both of us, local governments and civil society organizations. So maybe I will stop on this, just provoking you to our audience to ask me more questions about different spheres, because we are run out of time, and it's always interesting to answer the questions that you are keen of instead of lecturing our experience. So thank you, and I'm waiting for your detailed questions.
Thank you so much, Natalia. And again, just to remind maybe for those who just joined, you can ask the questions in the question and answer box, and we will get back to them after the discussion within panelists. Christian, I'd like to turn to you now to share your perspective on the cooperation. How is it being seen from the EU Commission side?
Yes, thank you very much, Irina, and thank you, Jana and Natalia for these insights. And yeah, very good to hear a lot of very good points that resonate very well with our impression and some of the priorities and potential that we see as well from the Commission. Just to clarify my own role, so I'm in the Reconstruction team in the Ukraine service of DG NS, so the DG for enlargement. And so I cover more the role of local governments in the reconstruction process and larger reconstruction related reforms, such as public investment management reform and these things. I'm less engaged with specifically civil society. That's a colleague of mine that's covering more of that. But since only one person could be here today, I will take that, because it's we see also from my point of view, from more the local authorities' point of view, and their need for capacity building and support the potential and the great use of the civil society, also in terms of making things work under very difficult circumstances. So it's very, very, very good to hear these examples, reading the paper, just seeing these 3 examples from Chernihiv, and to see that there are really poster boy like scenarios of that can be used to inspire and as a best example, well, best practice examples. That's really good. I can start by just highlighting some of the core issues seen from our side when it comes to this axis, this nexus between local authorities and civil society in terms of, well, both reconstruction and also service delivery, and also development of strategies and mapping the future of the local community. So one that is obviously quite large with us, it's the role of civil society to actually monitor different processes and how reconstruction is done, and to have a voice to point out when things are not done properly. So here, I mean, Ukraine is quite has quite some advantages in this sense, with being very advanced in the IT sector and having developed quite ambitious tools to digitalize the steps of reconstruction in terms of project planning, implementation, contracting, procurement, and all these things. So you have IT tools that might not be perfect, at least not yet, but they are there and they are actively being developed, like Prozoro for procurement. You have Dream, which is gaining a more and more important role as a core system for the public investment management reform. And also developing e-contracting solutions that are granted not fully in place yet, but there is work going on there. And so there's a lot of information on a lot of projects that are publicly available, but in order to actually verify whether the things that there make sense and are okay, someone needs to look at it. And this is not something that can be done only through official monitoring and auditing procedures. So here we absolutely need volunteers, civil society to do the tedious task of going through technical documents, contracts, all of this, and to speak up when something is not right. And I mean, this can be seen as a more adversarial relationship to local authorities, like trying to catch them when they do something wrong. But that's not, of course, there's an element of that, but also very much of supporting the local governments by creating trust. When people know that there are civil society out there looking for things, and then they when they don't hear anything, they will have greater trust in that things are actually being done properly. And also in many cases it might also be inexperience and insufficient procedures that produce problems, where the local authorities will have great use of having pointed out these mistakes so they can rectify them in the future, and hopefully have a collaborative approach with civil society to how to address this. So this is very important, and especially to have then also on the very local level active groups doing this, because as referred to also in the paper, if you only have these groups sitting in the big cities, they don't know the local conditions in a small rural Romada and a rayon where without any big settlements or big urban area. So here that you have also branches and people who really know the local conditions, who can look at this, because it's for them, it will make sense. So that's one aspect. But then you also have this very, very happy to have heard like a quite strong focus on this now, the planning, the strategy for the future, how to do things. There are very limited resources for reconstruction. So what you have needs to be spent in the best possible way. And here as well, there are big reforms happening now quite quickly. And then especially public investment management system. It's from the EU. We very much support this reform. It's super important. We want it to succeed, and I mean the reform. The ambition is massive. It's basically the goal of the system is to maximize the impact of limited resources. ensuring that all public investments are well coordinated and in alignment with overall reconstruction and development strategies, and connecting individual public investments with strategies. So where you also are supposed to have a strategic architecture with overarching national, sectoral, and regional policy strategies that then inform regional strategies, which again inform the local strategies, so that the main concerns are reflected and can be operationalized at a lower level, and all projects in DREAM in the future are supposed to then be anchored to these strategies. But of course, this is happening very quickly, and the capacity constraints at the local level are big. So it will be a big challenge for many local authorities to actually adopt this system now in the near term. So there will be additional procedures, and some will maybe be. I mean, it's also, the system is just coming now, so it's likely there will be need to calibrate and adjust certain things here as well. Feedback from local authorities and civil society will be important. What did work, what did not work, what can be done to actually make this more manageable for local authorities, to make sure that they are included in the system, but that the system also is not necessarily overwhelming them. But here you have a lot of space also for civil society, like civil society organizations wanting to play a role in and really do their part in strategic planning and helping their local community to get a good strategic development plan in place, and to help them manage these procedures mandated by the public investment management reform. They also need to inform themselves about what is required. So I realize this is still not so easy because a lot of the information, the methodologies of the public investment management reform are very new. Some are not even available yet. It's still coming out and being adopted. But to follow this closely, to try to understand, to support your local authorities in trying to come to grips with this, because in a bit longer term, when this is falling into place and maybe being adjusted a bit, hopefully it will really make a difference in how public investments are planned and made. But to get there, quite an effort is required, and I think civil society will have an important role to play here, but also needs to be ready themselves to do it. So and then, I mean, you also have, as mentioned here, you have more civil society stepping in and providing some services and doing some things that basically the local authorities maybe do not have the capacity to do right now. This is also great here. It's also just worth cautioning that even if in some cases it can be difficult for many reasons, and maybe for some civil society groups, the feedback and the motivation, as mentioned earlier, from the local government is not as big and accommodating as it should be. It's still very important to try to frame this as a collaboration and not try to replace the local government. Just that, they are not interested, we do it faster, so we just do it our way. Because even if that in the moment might seem easier, the local government is that they're staying there, and they are they will be they are the future in terms of developing the community, and so to really try to engage with them and do this as a collaboration, I think it's even when it's hard, I think it's a point worth making. I'm Norwegian myself, and in Norway it's quite a well-developed system for collaboration between volunteer groups and civil society and municipalities, because also in Norway municipalities have many tasks that for smaller ones especially can be difficult to handle. But also there it can be a balance to kind of to not let one actor become too dominant, and to maintain this sense of good faith collaboration. So I think those are the main points I wanted to make. I just also referring to, I mean, we have in Ukraine, so the EU is funding some quite substantial technical assistance, capacity building initiatives for local authorities. They absolutely also have civil society on their radars, even though they are not the local authorities are the main focus. But yeah, so they know that this collaboration is important to get into place. You have ULEAD with Europe, which is a well-established operation in Ukraine since 2016, led by GIZ. They work a lot for decentralization, also capacity building, also focusing on public investment management now, and the ability of local authorities to do projects. You have a new project that will be launched this summer. If everything goes as planned, it will be launched now during URC in Rome, EU for Reconstruction, and they will also have components within the project that deal with local authorities, and also a component that maintains a focus on civil society. So once it is launched, and it is worth also checking that and seeing how they are planning to unfold their activities. And then also, that's not us, but we know about them, and we talk regularly. This is ALDA, and they have these local democracy agencies in Ukraine, and as far as I understand, more are being established. And yeah, they focus especially on coordinating between local authorities and civil society. Although that is beyond direct support of the Commission, it's an actor we follow, and we appreciate that what they do, and that is also probably one of the most concrete expressions of really facilitating this, like with a particular focus on this very important collaboration between civil society and the local authorities. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. I do encourage all of the participants to ask the questions in the question and answer box, and we will get back to them after Jana's short response to the speakers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you very much, Christian, for, I think, very, very valid points. Maybe to start on the Natalia's point, more support for capacity building. That's I fully agree with you. You have also mentioned the national CSO versus the local CSOs, even though it does not always have to be versus. It can oftentimes be also very much complementary when there is a very good cooperation between the local and regional civil society organization and the national civil society organization, where both sides are respectful, know their part within the project, and where everything has been pre-agreed and pre-discussed and roles defined and before the start of the project. And of course, I think in ideal world, we actually want more local civil society organization and regional civil society organization. We really want very strong non-governmental organizations on the ground with strong capacities. The reality on the ground is that very often there are there are not so many local really NGOs, because either they don't have funding, they don't have the capacities to keep the people also short to medium to long term, and having a successful really non-governmental organization takes so much dedication of the people involved, that you know much more than I do, as somebody who's who has decades of developing an NGO. So in the end, there will be always also a national organization that will be also coming with the projects into the regions throughout the Ukraine. And I think what's important is that these national NGOs that do have their capacities, that they come into the regions as a real partners willing to listen to first and foremost to those organizations that are already operating on the ground, that already know the region, that know the local municipalities really well, have a lot of experiences, and that they don't just duplicate projects from one region to another region without really this close collaboration with those local actors that are already on the ground, and that this national organization, civil society organization, also help to build capacities of the local and regional civil society organizations through the project, that they don't just come with to implement the project and leave, but that they are also driven and motivated to also help build their the capacities and help empower people that might want to create new organization, or those people that already have organization but maybe are struggling with certain things and need new experiences. And then to Christian, to come back to your when it comes to the civil society role as a monitor of different processes as a watchdog. One thing I think that I have often heard throughout my interviews is that the civil society organizations that also have some sort of projects that they have either implemented in join, or that they kind of got their hands dirty together with the local governments, in that they have seen some of the challenges of their implementation. Later on, once the criticism part comes, some local governments will actually be more receptive to this criticism because they perceive that this NGO actually got their hands dirty in, so to say, in an actual implementation of a very challenging, often projects, and understanding the local realities by actually doing things. And then when the part to offer criticism to the local government comes, then they sometimes will trust this not trust, but will listen to these organizations more, because they don't perceive them as these externals who just come and criticize all the time, but they perceive the civil society organizations as those that have also tried to help implement certain things and understand the local reality. So this is, I think, one nuance that I think is very, very important in that context. I'm very happy to hear that there is this new component that will be introduced in the Ukraine Recovery Conference that tries to bring local governments and civil society up. I mean, there is a lot of things going on already, and you have correctly mentioned you lead with Euro, but I still feel that there is not enough programs, and I'm not just meaning from the EU side. I speak generally in the international donor landscape, where there is where there is a condition that really encourages, or at least if the cooperation between, or if the local government and civil society kind of apply as the co-applicants, that it's actually plus in the assessment of the projects. I think that this is still something that that is not practiced on such a large scale. And I think that will be it for now from my side.
Thank you so much, Jana. I do have a lot of questions going on in my head already about different aspects of it, of the presentation as it is. I would like to also maybe take the liberty for the moderator and comment on the communication part, because we work also the Civil Society and International Media Support Program at GMF, and we do have a lot of partners all over Ukraine. For the past 3 years, about 300 organizations who have been successfully implementing projects in different areas, and we do hear a lot of, like most common feedback is lack of communication, not only within the local civil society and authorities, but sometimes big organizations within themselves. And as a result, of course, we do have a lot of complementary projects and programs going on all around the country, but at the same time, some of the approaches can be used or can work for that specific organization, or cannot work for a different one. Maybe the question to Natalia and Jana and Christian as well, what do you think is the most productive way of such communication? Because I think that overall, we've had different platforms for donor coordination, for civil society coordination, for you name it, various approaches. And of course, there is no universal recipe how to make things work, but how to at least align some of the things or some of the practices about it. Natalia, I see you unmuted first.
Yes. First of all, it's political will to communicate and to collaborate, because if you just understand, you comprehend the necessity to communicate with your partners or opponents or whatever, then you should think about the approach and tactics, how to do this. So this is the first, it's understanding and will to do this. Because it's not a secret that each donor, its big structure, they have their own, it's normal, have its own programs, principles, values, and they would like to implement their own project. And it's good enough if together, for example, with the Ukrainian agenda or whatever, but it's maybe ideal to wait that all these donor structures will be synchronized, harmonized. So it seems like impossible for me, like local organizations that works for 25 years. I do understand and appreciate that yes, communication could be better, but we could not make them talking and acting like one single voice, and it's not normal. Better communication, yes. So invite before every meeting, so just be open, ask, and like we are doing participatory approach. It's not so, there is no some magic formula that could be used. It's very easy, it's the same approach, and we do this in our activities, every one of our structure. For example, I would like to give this very simple example. We had one project that we were equipping shelters in educational institutions, like with all this equipment necessary. So we are not doing like usual humanitarian or donor organization. We do not bring just desks or notebooks or tables or whatever. We go to each educational institution. We gather parents, we gather teachers, children, and told, you have exact sum for this, your shelter. Please pick up what do you need to equip it. It's participatory approach. So it was like a burden for us, because every shelter, every children, they would like, for example, one institution would like to have sofa in yellow color, the next one only white, the third in 2 colors. So you can imagine, much easier for us it would be to buy, like, for example, 100 notebooks, 100 sofas, and deliver to educational institution. But we did this participatory approach. We talk to them, we invite. So now we are sure that every item of this equipment will be on their own place, because children and parents and teachers, they do know what they choose and where it should be in their shelter, or for example somewhere in the school. By doing this in this collaborative way with the educational institution, not just by giving them what we consider for them better, it's very simple approach. It makes very transparent, it's very participatory, and they feel, not we are only like a tool. They feel that they own these results of this participation. So the approach is well known. So it's like, for me, it's like more subjective, or maybe, I don't know, political will and desire to be included, because it takes time. Indeed, it's more bureaucratic work, indeed, and maybe their lack of resources, of capability, whatever. So it could be real objective factors why this process is not so transparent and participatory.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this?
I can jump in. So it's a very good question, and I think this is also a question that very often, like, as I was working also from the donor side before, it's also very often the donors are like, how do we actually try to better coordinate and make sure? And it's always a challenge. And in fact, the higher you go, meaning from the local level to regional to central and to the international level, the more people, the more actors are there. And I mean, we are talking about thousands, literally thousands of stakeholders, both inside Ukraine at different levels. Internationally, we are also talking about a lot of organizations, both governmental, international, and this is, we have to face it for the central government of Ukraine. The challenge of really putting all of this together and coordinate is really difficult. It's I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that. But looking at the local level, because this is where I was looking at, and I will just give you, maybe this is an anecdotal evidence, but in the both at the period when I was in, for example, Horodnya and the Nizhyn, it so happened that at the day when I was there, they had in one case UN agency coming. I think it was UNDP on the business development, economic development related project. And in Horodnya, they had Danish Refugee Council coming also on the same day to the municipality. And I saw firsthand the local officials actually calling business organization, calling the NGOs that work with the humanitarian aid locally, calling and asking them and telling them, look, we have a unexpected visit from the UNDP or Danish Refugee Council. They will be presenting, their projects that they are thinking of launching, maybe in our municipality or in region. Please do come to this meeting in the city hall, in the town hall, as this can be, important information, for you and also for the people and for your target audience and beneficiaries, people that you help. So I saw it, first hand motivation of the local officials to really inform the people, businesses, inform active people, not necessarily just those that have NGOs, but just active citizens that take part in the processes on the local level. And I think that this is really crucial, that there is this really will to inform about the opportunities, to be transparent, to communicate, and also understand that by sharing this information, it's for the benefit of the community, because the more people will come to these meetings, the more chances will be that NGO after this meeting will maybe indeed send a project to UNDP or to Danish Refugee Council, or maybe even an initiative group of students or pupils that are not active now, but by listening to opportunities will get an idea, let's do something together, since there is that opportunity. So this is how I saw it working on the local level. At the central level, I think that's
Thank you so much, Natalia. Jana, Christian, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I can just maybe add also the aspect of international partnerships. So we see that this is spreading. More and more Ukrainian municipalities, they get one or more partners, EU or at least European municipalities that often have more of a tradition for cooperation with CSOs, and I am thinking here as well, it might be worthwhile to try to get involved in these partnerships, at least those that actually have substance. And I have the impression many have quite a lot of substance, with the partner municipality in being really interested in providing support and also a sense of know-how, how to do things, how to deal with, I mean, for example, new European standards that are being introduced more and more, and where the Ukrainian local authorities also have to adapt, but with often little experience on actually how to implement all of this. So for the CSOs, if their local authorities have partners and the partnership is actually working and has substance, to try to be involved in that, and maybe even connect with CSOs in the partner municipality to try to mirror and maybe encourage also exchange of practice and best practice in how to interact with your CSOs and see the potential. So yeah, that's just one more aspect that is worth considering.
Thank you so much for that. Another question that might be also on a borderline with comments. I do know that the Dobrochin Center, for one, and among some other organizations in Ukraine, also work closely with youth, or at least encourage the youth participatory approaches as well on the local level when it comes to participations in different working groups and so on, and also encouraging them to learn how to write projects, how to implement projects, and so on. We do have similar projects that we've supported around Ukraine as well, and in some regions it's working more, in some less. But then again, it sort of combines the challenges that you've all referred to. Would be those would be the lack of human resources, and also sometimes motivation to stay, and because people are still moving inside the country, even it's difficult to sustain this motivation for people to stay inside of the communities. And how do you because at the same time there are also projects or programs, even national wise and local ones, to encourage young people to join the public sector or public service for that matter. And how do you see this can be used as well as one of the positive examples that can be promoted, and not only within the community itself, but also for the recovery planning and for recovery strategizing, how to keep people inside of this, and how does youth respond to this on city level, rural level, sorry, and also at the level of municipalities with the departments that work directly with youth. Yeah, Natalia, Jana.
Probably I will start because we start working with the youth like one of our main target audience more than 10 years ago. So we start with very simple activities like school for changes or youth school or whatever. And it was very popular among young people. And now looking back for 10 years already, we now have a network. I skip all these long activities. It's like usual advocacy training, like Irina told. Now, after 10 years of such systematic activity, systematic approach is very important for any activity that we are doing. Now we have a network of young leaders that are already deputies of mayors, some now joining the armed forces of Ukraine. They are not only deputies, they are leading of business companies. And now if, for example, we need something or for some speaker for youth, because we also embed in the approach that youth is talking for youth. We are just managing this part for the youth, because if I come in telling youth how to do, it will be not so relevant for them. And it was funny, just one step back, that at the last press conference, then when the youth were talking about their project that they were realizing, a young girl, she was 27 years old, she told about her experience, how she understood the youth. She, 27 years old, she were talking about the difference between her and youth, because the next generation is coming and they would like to how to engage them. What is more important in the work with youth, and it is very rewarding when you work in the local level. If, for example, I am talking about the Chernihiv region and those communities who were occupied, and then liberated, so they had no chance to escape, to relocate, to remove. They stayed there, young people, during the occupation and doing tremendous work to sustain the activities of their communities, helping elderly and medicine, food, whatever. And now, when they were liberated, they stayed in their communities and continues. So now, then we also motivate and stimulate local authorities to include them into the public life, including like coming to work. Because if they stayed in occupation, they stayed after liberation. What is interesting, 95% of people stayed in those communities. They are practically from our region. People no flee from because they already saw the worst. So now we not only train their youth, we not only giving these soft skills on systematic basis, we also provide them small financial support. It's really small. It could be $600 for one small project, but we can measure the result. For the first year, when we announced this small mini competition, it was like about one application per community. And now, after 3 years of this calls, we have 24. We had 24 applications for 4 communities. We can see the rise because they all not only could be trained how to write down a project application, they also should have this practice where their opportunity where they can practice their skills. So this is a first step that they are doing. And for example, if we are talking about this first round of calls and first our grantees, now in a year, they believe in themselves, they applied for more money, and 2 communities, they received $500,000 for the youth centers. So they started from $600, and then in a year, they can attract this additional money to their own communities. So it's like when you have not only training, I repeat, but also practical use, where you can apply, because big donors, they are not very usually interested in this very, very small grassroots initiatives because it's administrative burden. So what I advise for all donor structure include this mini grant support for the national or regional organizations, because it's much easier for us to administer, for example, to administrate all this very grassroots organization. But as Jana told, everyone would like now, especially during the war, to combine soft skill and also practical skills, so that they can practice what they have learned, and then they believe in themselves and they can apply for bigger grant and for bigger. This is how it works: systematic approach and ability to apply for the funding. It also relates to local governments. If before we were talking about importance, how to monitor the reconstruction, how to monitor the recovery process, about the dream system and whatever. But if we're talking about now, money still do not go to local governments. All reconstruction that we have on local level are centralized, so they are state money. And even if local organization is monitoring, it's like spending from the state budget. It's not like local government budget. So there is not still much criticism of local authorities because they do not have money. But for the future, when we do hope they will have access to all these financial mechanism, including Ukraine facility, we also would like to develop this approach on the local level and help local authorities to to conduct all these procurings, planning and whatever with the help of civil society organization in order to avoid all this funding misuse and whatever it could be done. So if we're talking about now, it's only central money spendings, and it's very pity for local authorities because it could be plus to their budget, it could be employment of local people and etc. etc. And if I can return to recovery and reconstruction, as Irina asking about the role of youth, now local authorities, for the local authorities, youth is not only hope, but real essence for the recovery. They will recover and reconstruct everything for whom? For the people that will come or already live. And in order to retain these young people, they are now indeed included in any process that regards planning or implementing recovery project. For example, if local authorities they are elaborating their plans for recovery or strategies for recovery, they even include youth starting from 14 years old. According to our legislation, now they are residents, they are considered as residents with the rights to participate in the decision-making process, even youth from 14 years old. So we do have very good perspectives if we continue in this track involving young people and youth to accept decisions for their future. What do they do? And then to implement. So it's big chances that the young people will stay in their communities, will they participate in public life, they will go to the local authorities, or they will start creating startups or whatever, because they are part of their communities, not like beneficiaries of someone's project. Thanks.
I can further add on this. What Natalia's organization is doing and really investing into young people is really incredibly important. And I want to reiterate it and give it an example. So apparently Mayor of Nizhyn was one of those, young active locals that from quite a young age was also getting involved in different trainings of different civil society organizations, both political but non-political civil society organizations. And I had a feeling that part of his openness also to the civil society and appreciation for civil society also comes from those earlier experiences as a young person with in different trainings that were provided by the civil society organizations. And of course, nowadays, his will is very important. So investing into the young people and encouraging them is very important. And there are good news, because I think that there is a general understanding that young people investing into Ukraine's youth is really should be a priority. And I think that there is understanding on all levels, from inside of Ukraine, but also internationally with donors, also a number of programs that of different donors that really target young people. So I think that this understanding and realization is there, that Ukraine's recovery will only be possible if the young people stay, if they feel, motivated to be part of the process, and if they see the resources, opportunities for growth inside of the country. Now to the bit more bad news. For example, and this is based on also my research and what I saw on the ground, while the projects and opportunities are there, again, often there is misalignment with what the community needs and what the project can offer or program can offer. And just to give you again an example, I saw actually a lot of youth-related projects in the municipalities that I have visited. I couldn't cover all of the projects in my paper because, due to space, so I had to prioritize which ones I was looking at. But there are really a lot of youth-related initiatives. But at least in one case, for example, there was a very interesting project about youth center and getting youth people actively involved and building their capacities and training and encouraging them and motivating them and showing them successful business examples, successful CSO examples. And there was soft and hard part to the project, and the community renovated specific space for this project. And in the end, they ended up receiving a 3D printer, which of course cost a lot of money normally, but unable to, for example, use, which is not used at all because of technical, logistical, financial investment that is needed to operate a 3D printer. And instead, this money could have been used to actually, there is a need in community to bring young people from faraway villages and communities to actually this new youth center. But this was not an option that neither civil society that was implementing this project, nor the local government that was involved in this project, they didn't have an option to choose whether they want a 3D printer in this within this project or not. The 3D printer was part of a bigger project and bigger package that was basically the same project across different municipalities, exactly the same. And this again brings me to my always my stressful, my recommendation, one of the main ones, that is so important to always take into account the local needs and the local challenges, local priorities and local expectations, and talk both with the local government and civil society organizations before implementing any project, especially by the external big donors, international donors, but also local civil society organizations that don't come from the municipality.
Thank you so much, Christina. I do have a question to you, sort of to follow up on these initiatives, but also sort of what is your vision in terms of how to better communicate about good cases or challenges for that matter to the broader European audience to sort of gain this support in some countries within the EU that are not that friendly to Ukraine EU accession and so on. What do you think? What has been working, or what do you think can still work? I know this is also kind of maybe a bit provocative question, but at least from your experience, maybe you could share a few things. Thanks.
It's a very interesting question indeed, but and this is, yeah, it's not really something I deal with a lot, and indeed it can be a bit sensitive. But I think, I mean, one of the best weapons in this sort of situation is good examples, to really show that it works, to really show that it makes a difference. So to have these inspiring examples to really use occasions like URC, like other events. I mean, you know this, you operate in this more than I do. I'm more sitting in on the technical side and following and trying to analyze. But of course, our hierarchy as well, when they go to big conferences like URC and other events, they always ask for good examples. They always ask for, is there anything like really really good that we can show and tell, and because that's, you have many numbers, you have many initiatives and names and acronyms. But when you have pictures from a project that has actually worked, and where you have successful example of collaboration and implementation of modern methods of project management and planning, and yeah, then that captures people's attention, and yeah, that reminds them that there are, just as there are bad examples of things that do not work, there are also good ones, and those are the ones that needs to be really promoted, followed up upon, and used as example to spread further. And we have also this in our capacity building work. So you lead when they work now on capacity building, trying to reach as many of the municipalities as possible. I mean, you have 1,469, so it's quite, yeah, it's not easily done, but using the good examples of some of the largest cities, some others that have worked with in closely, and use those experiences and spread them through like larger gatherings, online platforms, accredited courses that draw in this this experience. So I think that's yeah, maybe not the super fancy answer and solution to everything, but I think in the long run this really makes a difference.
Thank you so much. I think that we are at the point when we are trying all possible solutions, fancy or non-fancy. So I do appreciate the the honesty and some of their ideas to also implement further on for the long term, because I think this is what we are all aiming for, the sustainability for the better. Thank you so much. I would like to pass the floor to Jana for the few concluding words. But before that, also to say a few thank you from my end. Thank you to Natalia and Christian for joining the conversation and sharing your insights, being with us also in this important times. Special thank you to Zuzana Weg, who is overseeing the Rethink Fellowship program. And to also all of the attendees who were with us online today. Jana, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, also I thank also Christian and Natalia from my side, and to everybody who joined today and showed interest in this topic. I remain and will continue to be very passionate about this topic, and I hope those of you who joined, if you are working already on this topic, or maybe larger topic of Ukraine recovery, really my few key words for me would be to take from this is really decentralizing and localizing. And I think it's really, really important to keep on reiterating that Ukraine's recovery needs to be as much as possible decentralized and localized, and that this local level really, it's very important to empower local level, both talking about local governments, but also civil society organization, because this is really where Ukraine's resistance, and also future, in my view, really is at the heart of this. And empowering the partnership between local governments and civil society, through funding, through visibility, through also just prioritizing such partnerships as donors in their programs, in their projects in Ukraine, encouraging this is something that I also would like to see happening going forward. And last but not least, always remembering, and I'm always so inspired by both civil society organizations and the local government officials, the mayors, but beyond mayors, so many local officials that are working in very difficult conditions. And this examples of what they're able to achieve with so limited resources that they have under such difficult conditions, especially in the regions like Chernihiv that remains under threat constantly, and people working under constant shelling and constant threat. If this is not inspiring going forward, talking about EU accessions and people in the member states, I don't know what would, because really the people, the Ukrainian people are an inspiration, and with this, I would just like to close and thank you again for this opportunity to delve deeper into the topic. And please do reach out to me in case you would like to keep on exploring this topic further together with me or with your organization, and would be very much looking forward to future collaboration on this topic.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think this very positive note, in a way, we can stop and say goodbye and see you in the future.